So even in seeing, So I have seen Terminator Dark Fate before reviewing this movie, and I can safely say with 100% certainty that this Terminator movie is still the worst one ever made.
I look at each of you, and I see the marks of this long and terrible war. If we die tonight, mankind dies with us.
I can barely remember what happens. It follows the same plot as Terminator 1 for a while. Kyle Reese is sent back in time to stop the Arnold Schwarzenegger T-800. But then things have been changed, and I can't remember why. Another Terminator is sent back, or further back in time, to protect Sarah Connor from when she was a child, and she calls him Pops. And there's a T-1000 Terminator that's sent back at the same time as a T-800 Terminator. And I don't know why either. That doesn't really make much sense. And then they somehow have made a time machine, their own time machine with 1984 technology, and they travel to the future where they try to stop this operating system from being released called Genisys, and they're being stopped by John Connor, who is a Terminator, and that is not a spoiler.
The machine sent a Terminator back to the time before the war to kill my mother, Sarah Connor.
Sir, let me save her.
What you're doing right now, this is the end of the war.
Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese, he does not capture the look or feel of Kyle Reese at all. Even Jai Courtney, I think, said, even though he's watched Terminator 1, he didn't really base his performance on the guy that played Kyle Reese in the first movie, and that doesn't look and doesn't feel like Kyle Reese. Emilia Clarke, who I adore, I really do like Emilia Clarke as a person, but in this movie, she is pretty bad. Probably not very well directed, and the writing for this movie, there was no saving this movie, to say the least. She doesn't really capture the feel of Sarah Connor as well. They were trying to push the badass factor of her a bit too hard, I think. So even before the events of Terminator happened, she was turned into a badass, and it just doesn't feel right. Arnold is still great as the T-800. I've always enjoyed him in Terminator movies. It doesn't matter how bad a Terminator movie is. I usually enjoy seeing him again in a Terminator movie. It was interesting to see the older T-800 and the younger one that's sent back in time. I say younger in terms of how they're aged, not model or anything like that. It was fun enough watching them fight each other. Jason Clarke is John Connor, and I don't think he's bad as John Connor, and I don't think he's terrible. There's been better John Connors and there's been worse John Connors, so I just kind of see him as in the middle. They turn him into a Terminator, which is not a spoiler because they revealed that in the trailer, which is a insanely stupid thing to do.
Hi, Mom.
How can you be here? What are you doing?
John!
What have they done to my son?
Survive was what you taught me.
Could have been an interesting twist and an interesting dynamic on having the savior of mankind being turned into a Terminator, but they don't really explore that. He just chases everyone down and tries to kill them. There's not really much going on other than that.
Come with me if you want to live. Now, soldier!
So I'm not an expert on acting or what makes good dialogue, but this movie ain't it. The dialogue seems forced, especially when they're trying to get as many quotes from previous movies in there, like, come with me if you want to live, now soldier, and I'll be back or I won't be back, or whatever. And the performances weren't that great. Like, Jai Courtney and Emilia Clarke, they didn't really have that much chemistry, so the love between Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor didn't really feel real in this movie, so I'm just like, I'm bored.
It's all wrong. John sent me here to save you.
From the Terminator that was sent back to kill me, I know, but we already took care of him.
We have been waiting for you.
One thing that I did like is that at the start of the movie, when Kyle Reese is sent back in time, the opening scene is very similar to the one that happened in 1984. Like I don't think they do it completely scene for scene, but they definitely try their best, and it definitely does catch that look of it with Kyle Reese being sent back in time. But that was interesting, I guess. And one thing too, I actually enjoyed the start of the movie more than anything else. The start where the Resistance is fighting against Skynet. It's at nighttime. Everyone has laser weapons. Hey, Terminator Salvation. Why didn't you do that? And it definitely captures that look and feel. And it was interesting that they're trying to make this final blow on Skynet. And I really enjoyed the start of the movie, and then it just all fucking fell apart.
Where is he?
Get out.
It's directed by Alan Taylor, who I only know as a guy that's directed a couple of episodes of Game of Thrones, and I guess that's how he knows Emilia Clarke, and I think she enjoyed working with him previously. But when she was talking about him before, she said this quote: "He was eaten and chewed up on Terminator. He was not the director I remembered. He didn't have a good time. Nobody had a good time." So if the director wasn't putting passion into this movie, he wasn't enjoying it, he didn't really want to do it, then the whole movie making process is going to suffer. And it shows in this movie. David Ellison and Dana Goldberg as well as writers, when you're messing with time travel and that kind of thing, it can really mess up a lot of what happens in the movie. There's inconsistencies and things that don't make sense, and if one thing happens, and how does this happen, and it's really hard to get around. It really seemed like this movie was pretty much doomed from the start.
I'll be back.
Normally I would talk about special effects and action, but there was nothing that really wowed me that much, truthfully. I just kind of thought it was meh. That CGI Terminator of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the younger version, looked pretty terrible, and it was just really bad. And that's all I really have to say on special effects, and action was just okay, I guess. So this is definitely the worst Terminator movie that's been made, and this is definitely one you can avoid too. This one tries to deviate completely from the previous movies and just kind of reboot the whole series. But it failed miserably in that, and you can definitely give this one a miss. And as always, thank you for listening to me ramble on about a movie for a few minutes. I do appreciate it. Thank you again, and I'll catch you next time.